Everyone, back tuning into today's video. I'm going to do the September month head forecast today. Have a look at some of the long range models, see what they're showing for September. Also going to review the forecast for August. It wasn't a particularly inspiring forecast for August from GazWebBiz.com. Not very happy with the August forecast. I'll explain what I think went wrong in a moment. Before I get on, I just want to talk about the advertising. I'm trying out some new display ads today. There's a new banner ad at the top of the page and in the box underneath the videos here on my homepage at GazWebBiz. Have a look at those ads. They're from Yahoo. They're quite different to what I've been running before. See what you think to them. You can click through those ads and go to the sponsors' websites. You'll be supporting GazWebBiz.com by doing that. There's also the green keyword ads still on all my pages, so you can click through those and go to the advertised website as well. And generally, by doing all of these things, you are helping to support GazWebBiz.com, and thanks very much for doing that. Now, just want to say about September, it's always one of the hardest months to forecast, and the reason is the hurricane season, really. The hurricanes are transporting, the idea of hurricanes is that they're transporting warm air from the tropics to the pole. That's sort of the energy budget of the Earth, taking the heat out of the tropics and transporting it, or dumping it really, into the pole where it's not needed. Now, when this happens, it's kind of like throwing a bomb into the atmospheric setup, and the ripple effect spreads out over a vast area, and that's the reason that you always get very uncertain weather patterns in September. The models struggle with these hurricanes. They struggle with moving them, trying to where to take them. They also struggle with the ripple effects going on across the hemisphere. So September is always a hard month, perhaps the hardest month to pin down. It's the same year after year. Currently, the shorter range models, even the models that are just going out a few days, are really struggling with the weather for the weekend and next week. There's always a lot of unreliability with modelling in September. So, despite the fact that the models we're going to look at, the seasonal models, may point in a particular direction, I may override those seasonal models and come up with my own idea for the month. As I say, September always very tricky. Now, just want to talk about August. The August forecast was a bit of a letdown, to be honest. I predicted a cooler than average month and or average to cooler than average, with precipitation coming out average to wetter than average. The forecast was wrong. It's actually been a warm month, and in terms of the precipitation, it's actually been a little bit drier than average. Now, the idea for August was that it's going to be a cooler and more unsettled month compared to the very hot and settled July. Now, that as a general idea has been pretty good, and I think what the models were dealing with for August is that they was really overplaying the change. They did see the change coming from July to August, a different pattern, and they sort of took it too far, really. And despite the fact that August was a cooler month to July and it was a more unsettled month to July, it wasn't that cool and it wasn't that unsettled, and that was the problem, I think, with the August forecast. So here's the centering temperature from Hadley for August, coming out at 16.9, which is an anomaly of 1.1 degrees above average. And we see that now we do actually have 2 months in 2013 that have come out above average, and they're perhaps the months that you want to come out above average, really, July and August. If you're going to have months come out above average, they're the best two to have, to be honest, the two high summer months. So yeah, we've got 2 months now in July and August above average, and of course we also have all of these other months earlier in the year. The first 6 were cooler than average, so it's a very cold start to the year, but things do seem to be progressing in a much warmer phase for the second half of the year. Just at the moment, have a look and see whether that's likely to continue for September. So starting off with the Beijing Climate Centre, first of all, these are the 500 millibar heights from the Beijing Climate Centre. This is broken down into 10-day periods. This first 10-day period takes us from the 1st of September, and we're looking at high pressure out to the west of the country and low pressure sitting up to the north. As an anomaly, I think that's pretty good, because we are going to be basically under high pressure for the first 5 days of this period, and then for the second 5 days we may well turn in a good deal more unsettled. So to balance it out over the 10 days, that's probably a fairly reasonable prediction. The next 10-day period, which takes us from the 11th to the 20th shows that we've got below average height sitting out to the west of the country. Not particularly intense area below average heights, but below average heights nevertheless. So we've got low pressure out to the west, and over here we can see that high pressure is sitting to the northeast of the country. That could be a good deal more unsettled through that 10-day phase, particularly early on in that 10-day period. I think that could be really quite unsettled, but at least with that you would be tending to favour southerly winds or southeasterly winds, so probably not particularly cold. It could be quite warm at times. And then the final 10-day period, I should say, taking us from the 23rd to the 30th of September, shows that we're building in above average heights to the north of the country, quite extensive above average heights sitting to the north of Scotland. Near normal heights underneath, but to be honest, I would expect that to be lower, that height anomaly. I would expect that to be below average. So I'll put a question mark here because I'm not sure that's quite right. I suspect that with the high pressure up here, bit of northern blocking really through the north of Scotland in towards Iceland and Greenland, you would expect low pressure to be underneath it and moving in that sort of direction. So I think that's a little bit wrong. I would expect that to be quite a bit more unsettled than that is showing, that final 10-day period. Now, the temperature anomaly for September with Beijing Climate Centre is coming out warmer than average. It's predicting a warm month there across many parts of the country. I think that's pretty good, certainly for the first sort of phase of the month. I think you probably will see the temperatures easing down somewhat later on. Now, have a look at the precipitation anomaly for September. It's going for near normal, actually a little bit wetter perhaps in the north, a little bit drier in the south, but overall I think we are looking at near normal rainfall just there from the Beijing Climate Centre. So a warm month with near normal precipitation is the forecast from the Beijing Climate Centre. Now have a look at the CFS temperature city forecast. This is for London for September, and we can see that the model is going for well, quite a warm start to the month. We are going to go up here in the first few days of the month with quite a warm spell. Then we're going to get a big drop off occurring as we go through to around the 6th to the 8th of the month. We go quite cool, and then sort of the temperatures stabilise up and down a little bit on and off, but never really getting back to this area that we're at just at the moment in the opening few days of the month. Actually, between the 21st and the 26th, it does get quite warm. We're tempted getting back towards the 20-degree mark, but then it's seeing another drop, quite a big drop, actually going into the final 5 days of the month. And as we go into October, the idea is that we keep it relatively cool then. So the idea from CFS model is definitely that the warm weather that we're going to get in the next 2 or 3 days is then going to drop away, and we're never going to get back up to that kind of warmth, although temperature is going to stay sort of stable after they drop and stabilise around the seasonal average. Now, in terms of the 700 millibar height anomaly for September, which is the chart here, similar to the Beijing Climate Centre idea, except it's in a different area in the atmosphere. It's showing that we've got a below average height sitting to the north and the northeast, and above average heights sitting in the Atlantic. The jet stream with this is coming through something like that, and that's pretty cool really, and quite unsettled. That's certainly a cooler and more unsettled signal than we just saw with the Beijing Climate Centre. It's showing that temperatures for the month are coming out near norm, but notice that much of France and Spain actually coming out below average, as is Iceland. And again, I think the reason is that we're bringing the jet stream through. The jet stream is coming through, if I just quickly highlight it, the jet stream is coming through something like this, to be honest. So we're just about on the cool side of the jet with that. In terms of the precipitation anomaly for September, it's showing that Scotland's going to be quite wet, near normal for England and Wales, but that's certainly a more unsettled signal from the CFS model for September than we're just looking at from the Beijing Climate Centre. Just want to have a look at the Korean model. I had a look at this a few days ago in a video, but just going to recap on it. And it's broken down, I think, into 10-day periods. So this middle part of September that we're looking at here is probably taking us from the 10th to the 20th. and it's shown that we've got high pressure as an anomaly across the country. This is sea level pressure, and it's shown that we have got high pressure as an anomaly across the country through the middle part of the month. But then as we get through to the latter part of September, which takes us, I think it's taking us somewhere from around the 20th to the 30th, then we bring low pressure back quite strongly to the northeast. We take the high pressure out into the Atlantic, and we've got the jet stream coming through, something like that around that trough that's setting up over Scandinavia. Now that's kind of in the same idea to what we just saw with the CFS model for late September. So this implies that we'll have reasonably warm sort of middle phase of the month and settled, but then we'll turn it much more unsettled and cooler in the final stages of the month. And if you have a quick look at October, then it sees the trough actually sitting right over the top of the country, deep trough there, sitting right over the top of the British Isles. The high pressure's gone up towards Greenland, and the jet stream is going up and then coming down, something like that. That's potentially a very cool and unsettled signal for the start of October. So I think the idea from the models is that it's going to be a changeable month, not necessarily all that settled, but not necessarily all that cool. And I think we're going to see quite alternating sort of patterns. That's something you tend to get a lot of in September. Actually, you do sort of seesaw between high pressure, low pressure, warm and cooler. It's that kind of month, up and down temperature. I think we're going to have a classic September, really. And overall, I would suspect that the temperatures will come out a little bit above average. I would go for not as warm as the Beijing Climate Centre is predicting, but above average, perhaps as much as a degree above average, 0.5 to a degree, so a warmer than average month, certainly. And precipitation, I think we're probably looking at near normal to slightly drier than average, if anything. But what I would suspect is that when it turns unsettled, it could get really quite unsettled indeed, and even into the south and southeast we could bring some rain. Now later on in the month, I do think we could turn it very much more unsettled and cooler, much cooler potentially, into the final phases of the month. That could take us into October. So a very interesting September, all things considered. I think we'll have a really interesting month. And as I say, it's always a very, very hard month to pin down, September. It's always a bit of a guess, educated guess. That's really what you have to do in September because of the hurricane season, always causing a lot of uncertainty. So finally, the forecast from GasWeatherBiz.com for September is that very tentatively, I think we're going to have a slightly warmer than average month, not a particularly hot month, not one of the hottest Septembers ever or anything like that, but above average temperatures by as much as about a degree, and precipitation coming out near normal to perhaps slightly drier than average, potentially much more unsettled and cooler later on. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.